welcome to InCabin from the creators of AutoSens, connecting the global community of automotive interior specialists working on in-cabin safety, comfort, and productivity solutions through industry-leading events and knowledge sharing. Today, we're joined by founder and CEO of Novus Hitech, Anuj Kapuria. Anuj, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you for having me.
So Novus Hitech has established itself as the leading provider of ADAS and AV solutions for commercial vehicles in India. Tell us more about your organization.
So Novus Hitech actually is part of $250 million high-tech group. And we are in varied businesses from gears and transmissions for automotive to mobile robots, ADAS and in-cabin solutions. And we serve that both for passenger vehicles as well as commercial vehicles. And we also take care of OEMs as well as fleets market. So for the in-cabin and ADAS business line of ours, our mission, though audacious, is pretty simple. We help our customers achieve zero accident goals. The company actually was started by me way back in 2005, where before that I was doing my PhD at Carnegie Mellon in the US in robotics. And my research work was all around autonomous navigation, vision-based perception. And I was working on various projects for NASA, Department of Defense, DARPA. And, I was really glad to be part of the DARPA Grand Challenge. I don't know whether you're aware of that. It was the first race of autonomous vehicles that happened. So didn't really want to continue in academia. So I dropped out of my PhD and then started this, or diversified the group with this company that I started. And essentially the whole mission was around how do we create impact in solving real world problems of today, right? Started off with autonomous vehicles, and like anything that I was attuned to, it was for defense applications. That became the genesis and the sandbox testing for our technology. And we continue to work on specific AV use cases. But we also started then to focus on driver monitoring and understand what are the various safe behaviors and maneuvers, not just to inform our AV algorithms, but to ensure safe driving for today's vehicles. So we created then kind of a full stack solution for ADAS in cabin, as well as video telematics. And now I think proud to say that we are one of the only companies, in Indian companies, that has products and technologies which are in production, where our current DMS solutions are in production with over 20 models and over 25 design wins across 4 OEMs. And tens of thousands of these are already installed in vehicles, doing in-cabin monitoring as well as forward collision warning for the fleet market as well. So that's a little bit about our organization.
Yeah, you have a really interesting background yourself, which I find isn't too unusual for founders and CEOs. And I just have to mention that I've been doing a little bit more research on what is going on in India, because we've had a lot of interest coming for in-cabin out of India. And do you have anything you would want to add about, why do you think there's an advantage to coming to the US market or the European market, having established yourself in India already?
So I think there are a couple of, reasons we feel that we are at an advantage, both for in-cabin and for forward-facing exterior sensing sensors, if you will, for ADAS, right? And we have a unique perspective because we started from autonomy, right? So the significant experience that we have in autonomy, the amounts of data that we've captured, we have about 7 billion kilometers of data, and most of them are high coverage on edge cases. So, if you've ever been to India, you know what happens on Indian roads. And you'll be even surprised to what happens in Indian vehicle cabins, specifically if I talk about trucks, right? Like people actually are cooking inside trucks while the truck is moving, right? So, I mean,
Wow,
these are
okay.
the kind of edge case data that we have now. So nothing is left to imagination. And, you run these algorithms to be able to understand the activity level stuff happening inside these cabins, right? So that's, I think, the advantage that we have. Secondly, we are a very price sensitive market, right? So we have to optimize our algorithms, our deep learning models, our software in general to run on very low compute, resource constrained embedded systems, right? That's
Hmm.
another advantage, right? So because we are driven to the wall on price, we have to perforce, perform the best, but at the lowest compute possible. So I think a couple of reasons like this and the edge case coverage that we feel India is a good sandbox testing ground, and you can build technologies out of here for the globe.
Novus Hitech has established itself as a leader in the Indian commercial vehicle ADAS market with a significant presence in driver monitoring systems and in-cabin monitoring systems. How do you work with OEM segment after and the aftermarket segment?
So, like I was saying earlier, we have a very unique approach. We started from autonomy and autonomous vehicles. So we understand what would be needed in-cabin and exterior sensing from that perspective. Right? And the fact that we have large amounts of data, over 7 billion kilometers that we've covered, the high coverage of edge cases, as I was mentioning to you earlier, just, you know, a few seconds ago. And we have our deep learning algorithms which are agnostic to hardware. So when we look at the software and the models, we try to optimize it, make it run with the lowest compute. Further, we have the capability of fusing various sensor modalities, whether it's cameras, radars, or even LiDARs. From a technology point of view, competence point of view, we actually build our own embedded system. We design our own embedded system. We make them comply to automotive grade. So whether it's the camera hardware, communication between all these sensors, running it on SoCs, various operating systems, designing of the optical system, all of that is what we do in-house. So we essentially have full stack development capability. And this ranges from hardware to software, as I mentioned, to qualify for automotive grade. This is both for OEMs and tier ones. So we can provide them anything that they need. Like we can provide them the algos and models alone. We can provide them the software layer. We can optimize it for a particular OS, provide them the firmware. We comply to NCAP and EU GSR standards, and we can customize the hardware accordingly as well. It's all dependent on the customer need. Specifically for the commercial vehicle fleet, and by the way, whatever I said earlier is applicable both to passenger cars as well as to commercial vehicles. Specifically to commercial vehicles and fleet operations, we also have a full stack solution for connectivity and analytics. And this we provide through our Novus Omni Fleet cloud platform, which is a safety and video analytics platform, where we not just log all the infractions that the driver is doing, but we also provide prospective feedback for fleets to reduce their risk profile, right? For this specifically, we've launched recently what we call Novus Fleet GPT, which is a generative AI-based fleet safety manager to help the fleets achieve zero accident operational goals, right? So we kind of running the entire cycle loop for them, right? So it's a full closed loop. It's the hardware plus the software plus the connectivity plus the cloud, and the analytics on top of it, plus also automating this entire thing for them in order to learn their operations and help them run zero accident, operationally efficient fleets.
You're a very full service firm to work with.
Yeah.
That must be really attractive for the fleet operators. Do you find that do you find that there's sort of any interesting or notable differences that are between the fleet operators and sort of the OEMs that you're working with that kind of highlight your capabilities or your flexibility?
Definitely. I think, while this, we look at it kind of like a flywheel, right? So the fleet help us have a large population of our devices in the wild that help
Hmm.
us own our algorithms. We are capturing all of this data on a continual basis. We are capturing these edge cases and we are feeding it back to our AI, right? For the OEMs, since we are offering this full stack, so they can pick and choose. So basis an OEM's need for deeply integrating into some other person's hardware, let's say some other provider's tier one's hardware, we can just provide the software, or we can just provide the data model, or you can, almost like pick and choose what you need from an OEM's perspective, right? So their needs are very different. Like a fleet operator essentially wants the impact created on their operations, right? The OEM wants something that differentiates them for their end customer. So their
Mhm.
end game is very different. And for both, we have offerings because they're kind of like a flywheel that work together for us. And that's really our moat also, in a sense.
Very interesting. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Novus Hitech started with autonomous vehicles. How do you perceive the trends in-cabin technology as vehicles become more autonomous?
So I think this is a subject that's very close to my heart, actually, because my research work was on autonomous navigation, computer vision. And we started off from unmanned ground vehicles. Now, these aren't called unmanned ground vehicles anymore, apart from the defense parlance. But we created a very specific thesis of how we see these sensors evolve over time. And essentially, we look at this in two phases, right? Like if you look at phase one, which is where we are in today, kind of, which is up to L3 level autonomy, right? And then you have to look at phase two, which will be L4 and beyond, like highly automated driving systems, right? So up to L3, we need sensors to understand the driver's state on whether he or she is in a condition to take over control if the vehicle so decides, right? Because in L3 autonomy, you can be asked to take over control of the vehicle at any moment. And if you're not able to, then you're in an unsafe situation. So it kind of loses the purpose, right? So here, up to this point, driver state becomes very important. Further, there are other use cases which are actuations of safety systems and so on and so forth, like airbags. So dependent on the occupant and how he's sitting, the age of the occupant, and so on and so forth, you like these safety mechanisms to operate in a particular way, right? So I feel it's a critical sensor today as well. And when you reach autonomous levels of L4 and L5, which is very highly automated, I think personalization, customization of driving profiles, actually, not driver profiles, driving profiles, based on occupant reactions would be needed. So let me give you a thought experiment here. So you're sitting in an autonomous vehicle and it's driving really aggressively, and you aren't comfortable with the way the vehicle is driving. So it's almost like, in your mobile phones, like you have personalizations, right? You like certain settings and so on and so forth. I
Yeah.
think eventually it's going to come to that, because you're going to have a sensor is going to be checking on how the occupant's reacting to the way the vehicle is driving. And that becomes an input to the autopilot, right? So I think it's going to be an evolution, but I feel that across levels of autonomy, in-cabin sensing is going to be very important. Because at the end of the day, specifically for cars, you're carrying human cargo. So you need to sense what's happening to the human cargo. It's not about just carrying them from point A to point B, right? And our roadmap is very well attuned and aligned to this way of thinking in this direction.
That makes a lot of sense. And everything you said about, what's happening cross-functionally and exactly that the human becomes the cargo. We are the cargo and we are the cargo now. That's it. I love that sort of illustration of why it's still important to have monitoring of humans even when they're not the driver. So wonderful. Yeah. Anything else that you wanted to add before I let you go?
No, I think that's it. I'm looking forward to being in person and in cabin. This is going to be our first time there. So looking forward to
Perfect.
in-person interactions with like-minded people.
Well, I'm certain you guys are going to have a great show. You're going to meet lots of great people. People will be very keen to talk to you and hear how things are going. and we will be so happy to welcome you on site.
Thanks, Sarah. Great talking to you. Looking forward to meeting you in person.
Same to you. To find out more information on Novus Hitech and to find out more about our upcoming events, see the links in the description or visit InCabin.com. That's InCabin.com. And for more in-depth interviews like this, subscribe to this YouTube channel and follow InCabin on LinkedIn. From Minneapolis, on behalf of InCabin, I'm Sarah Sargent.